Hi, everybody. I'm Charles Edelstein. I live now in Denver, Colorado, in the Rocky Mountains. I've been here for the last 30 years. I'm living the American dream, guns, drugs, and some good things also. If you want to buy marijuana in the supermarkets, come to Denver. It's cheap, $10 an ounce. I'm sorry I can't be with you. It's a long way to travel. I'm really busy at the moment. I was looking at my sub A class here, and I still remember all these names: Nigel Henderson, Graham Boxall, Belair's, Crombie. I think it's in alphabetical order that we had these photos. I'm very friendly with Mickey and Graham Boxall. And then there was Lyle Abel. David Alterman was my best friend. And I went right through from sub A to end of medical school. That's like 20 years with Hugo Hammond, Kaimovitz, Michael Louis Borsman Becker. So, guys, I love the people I met at SACS. I don't love the school at all. I didn't like most of the teachers, but I loved the classmates and the fun we had, and the public entertainment that Mike Canty provided, and the public entertainment that some of the school teachers provided, like Uberholzer, who we said, like, every time I open my mouth, the same fool speaks. So you probably think that of me now, but I just remember that. A lot of other. Andrew, thanks for doing this whole interview process. I've really enjoyed speaking to you. It's been like a therapy session for me. Have fun. Don't drink too much. And remember, don't drink and drive, even though in South Africa, you'll end up in Pollsmoor prison if you drink and drive. I know that because my father was a district surgeon, and he arrested with the police all the drunken drivers, and many of them were very prominent people that somehow got off or never ended up even in court because of the fact that they were very influential in those days. I never ever went back to SACS after I left. Not once. Not stepped foot in the property because I didn't feel the urge to do it. I mean, I had fun at school and I had fantastic friends and we had a great time, as you know, me and Mike Canty, and we had the most fantastic time at school. I just cruised through school, did my work, was like after Mark Witston, I think I was number 2. I just missed the A, stuff like that. But when I look back on it, it wasn't, I mean, you must agree, it was a whites only school, a male only school, a xenophobic school, a homophobic school. If you didn't, I got into trouble for craps, which is actually good. I'm trying to write a book. I got caned by the boss, I think twice, once for not having for not cutting my hair, and once for wearing odd socks. This is true. I walked into his office. Were never caned at SAC, or maybe long haired with one of the two. Somehow they didn't like what I was doing. So I got caned by Whiteford. Actually, he let me select the cane that he had a whole lot of them in his office. I suppose 40 years, 50 years ago, maybe that was appropriate. When you think about if something like that today he would be in jail. Like he would be in jail. And then the one really story I remember, we were all standing outside the class, whole group of us. Then we had this new principal. His name was Patterson, as you know. What was his name? We called him Frog Patterson because he looked like a big frog. So he walked past and the whole group of us was making these frog noises, like, and he got really mad and he stopped and he said, "Who's making these frog noises?" So like there was like a silence. Then I stupidly was the only one that put up my hand. And he knew that we were all doing it. So I put up my hand. I'll never forget this. And he took me to the office and he didn't say to me, "You know what? I respect the fact that you were the only honest person in that whole group of people." That made me realize immediately that he was not what we would call in Judaism a mensch. You know what a mensch is? Like a really nice, decent kind of guy. That he wasn't this kind of guy. He just took out his cane and he caned. Said, "Don't ever do that again." And I thought, all he had to do is just, acknowledge my courage. So I got caned for that also. And but I had fun. Believe me, we had fantastic fun. So I remember the school. I don't pay any respect to the school. I pay respect to all my friends that I made at school, all of the people and the fantastic people and the fantastic time I had with all the friends. And I know in Newlands, I was very friendly with Mike Canty. Not so much with you. I think I went to your house a few times. I remember your sister and your mom, but I had closer friends at school. Ravensburg Avenue. There was a whole group of people in Ravens, starting at the top, the Beckers. Some of them went to SACS. Then the Shine Bars, he may have gone to SACS. And then it went down the road. There were the Rosenzweigs who were kind of related to us. Their kids went to SACS, their boys. Boy, I have so many memories of. One was called Michael Rosenzweig. He like got through SACS and and he. I'll never forget this. I think some of our parents treated us horrifically bad. Michael Rosenzweig was a musician and his parents wanted him to become a doctor and stuff. They kicked him. He came and lived with us in our garage for a period of time. They kicked him out because he wouldn't do of home. And he was a fantastically nice, talented guy. And I was looking him up. He's like one of the most famous musicians in the United States. He's like what's his name? Fig, the one. He's like truly one of the talented musicians. He's now a professor of music somewhere. How did our parents do that? How would they do that kind of thing? It was horrible. And I think, my father also did treat us well when I look back. Maybe that was the way parents were 50 years ago. It wasn't good. I'm sure that a lot of us had really good parents. So those were all the people living in the Gelb. Stephen Gelb was another one. He was at SACS. Yeah, I actually, to be honest with you, also somehow I saw Tony Katz's name on the list. So I kind of emailed him. I said, these are my experiences at SACS. So he said he will never come near SACS again. Because you remember Tony from the beginning was like doing ballet and we always made fun of him. Clearly he was, gay. He was made fun of his whole schooling, and we didn't. So that's the kind of thing that we didn't realize what we would do, but it was clearly having a big effect on him, and he still remembers it to this day and doesn't want to associate with anybody. So I said, I'm sorry if I said anything that did anything, for you when you're at school, which we probably did do. Kind of, I don't know, my life is different. I'm sure, I don't know if things have changed in South Africa, but the university I work at, University of Colorado, in Denver, Colorado, when I think of the old, that's another reason why when I think of this gathering, it's like an old boys club. There's no such thing here as old boys club. They would never have that kind of thing. Old boys clubs and old teachers is like everybody here is like he, she, or it. You cannot say one thing. We have to do like these courses, on how to act appropriately, not to say things that will offend people of color or people of different sexes or gay things or even saying things unintentionally. We have to be so careful of what we say. You have no idea. I don't know if it's like that in your experience. Working at this big liberal university, it is. You've got to be very careful. In contrast to what happened 50 years ago, where, it was a free-for-all, boys only, whites only, straight only kind of people. So that's my kind of perception. Like things are so different for me now compared to how they were when we were at school. And I think things have changed for the better, at least in my life. I'm more respectful of people of other races, of other cultures, of other persuasions, very respectful and very tolerant. The other thing you've got to realize, the US is a very diverse country. Every state is different. Colorado is a very liberal kind of blue, they call it. They're blue states, a democratic state. right, where, you know, the abortion is still legal, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. But there are other places in America that are not like this. Believe me, America is like the land of extremes. You get the best of everything, you get the worst of everything. And believe me, there's definitely the worst of everything. There's still racists, there's still the police, as you know, killing people. There's still a lot of bad things as well as good things. So I have a picture here. I have it in my office of Sub B South, 1963. I was just looking. It's funny. I haven't thought about anybody in like 6-something years, but I remember most of these names. Nigel Henderson, Graham Boxall, who I'm still friendly with, Graham. I see him when I come back to South Africa. Belair's, Crombie, Gerber. Mickey's my best friend, even though he lives in South Africa. Boyd, Colley, Abel, Altman, Michael Louis, Bosman, Becker. Still remember his names, even though I haven't seen him in like, well, actually, I have. He's one of the few, him, Gary Shamovitz, and Christopher Huger, that I was with from sub-A to standard 10 and then through medical school as well. So we were together basically for 20 years. It was amazing. I mean, I wasn't very friendly. Gary Shamovitz, I was very friendly. I met my wife at a party, you know, during medical school. So Gary, I was friendly with. Hugo Hammond, you know, I mean, we were bad friends. It just we're not like socializing a lot. Okay. And Becker kind of kept to himself.
Still does.
So, and then I looked at the standard 3, and then there's some new names that come up. Larry Schwartz, Mike Canty's. He must have been in sub B North or something, but he wasn't in that picture. But we had a lift club. So I remember in sub A, we had a lift club. Me, Mickey DeFoss, Mike Canty, a few others. The mothers used to every day. One mother would collect us and pick us up on the playground. I remember in the lift club was Mickey, Mike Canty. I think that's about it. Maybe in another one, Larry Schwartz. Maybe. Okay, so that's, and then I finished school in 73. And then I went to medical school, 73 to 79. Again, I kind of feel a little bit guilty in a way, because in medical school, there were a few, you know, coloreds in our class, but it was mostly white males, and it was completely free. I mean, like, well, I tell the people here that pay $100,000 a year for medical school. My medical school cost the equivalent, I think it was 200 rand a year, $10 a year paid for medical school, got everything free, got the best education. But again, it was a very select group of people, which we were lucky. And then in 1980, I did my internship at Curtis Gear Hospital. 81 to 83, I went to the Army. That's another whole story where I can write a book about all my experiences in the Army. I didn't want to say I went to the board. And actually, that's what made me liberal-minded, very liberal. I wasn't that liberal until I went to the Army. When I suddenly saw the bad things that were going on, I was on the board at this military base, and the guys at the military base were wacko. They were killing, you know, their own people and firing mortars and getting drunk and stuff like that, persecuting the local people. I was just watching all of this. And then I remember I used to listen to radio, and Pik Botha was addressing the United Nations and telling the United Nations, you know, South Africa is such a positive influence, Southwest Africa, and they're doing such good things, and without them, blah, 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 blah. I thought, this is wow. What I'm seeing is that they're killing the people there. Anybody who, you know, wasn't pro South Africa. So that made me realize that there was something radically wrong. The society I was living in on the border. But again, the border was like it's. We just had a good time, did all bad things, as much bad things as we could. Had a good group of friends there and stuff. And then from 1983 to 87, I was a resident registrar, they call it. So I internal medicine at Tygerberg Hospital. So I moved to Tygerberg Hospital from Kurtzkia Hospital. Then in 87 to 93, I worked at Tygerberg Hospital. Again, I got into trouble, like I always get into trouble. Around 1990 was when apartheid was ending and the hospital was meant to be getting rid of all its apartheid, and it wasn't. There were still two separate hospitals, and they were doing it very slowly. And a whole group of us wrote a petition about it. I almost lost my job because of that, saying that they weren't integrating fast. Well, this was like 1919. And then in 1993, I moved to Denver to do a fellowship. And I was coming back to South Africa. I mean, I was just coming to do a fellowship. I don't know, I was lucky. I got some lucky breaks. And then I am specializing in kidney diseases. And I've been in Denver, Colorado since 99. Never moved since then. My wife is like, I moved 10,000 miles once. Even though in America, people move around a lot to get better jobs and stuff like that. So I've been in Denver, Colorado since 1993. Don't be fooled by what you see in the background. I was on a tropical island like last month. So I work here. I'm a professor of medicine. I do research. I've actually done pretty well in which I have a lot of publications. I do teaching, and then I see patients, and those are the three main things. I could say I'm living the American dream. I have everything I want. I have a house, I have nice cars, nice family. I'm extremely lucky. I have my health. So I'm extremely appreciative every day for what I travel a lot. Last month, we went on a cruise. We go to the Caribbean a lot. There's a nice country right nearby. So we did a cruise to the Caribbean in December, which was beautiful. We went to Aruba, Curacao, Haiti, lay on the beach, swam in the Caribbean. I sent Mickey DeFoss some pictures of me swimming in the Caribbean, because every time I go back to South Africa, he goes swimming at Muizenberg every Saturday morning, every year with Graham Boxall. So when I go to South Africa, I join them. Even in June, I've swum in Muizenberg. Although now I take my wetsuit with, and they just run into water in a bathing. In the middle of June, in the freezing cold water, I go in my wet, spend some decent time in the water. So I always send Mickey and Graham pictures of me swimming in the. So we were in Curacao. The temperature there was like 80 degrees. This is Fahrenheit now. Say 40 degrees. Well, let's go Fahrenheit. 80 degrees Fahrenheit. When I came back to Colorado, there was a winter storm with a wind chill. This is truth. It had got to minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So remember, 32 is thing. So minus 50 is like minus 60 degrees centigrade. So it's like the biggest temperature drop I think anyone's ever experienced. I was at 90 degrees, 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and I went down to minus 60 with a wind chill. Drop of 140 degrees, like 3. So Colorado is like, I'm looking out here, I can see the Rocky Mountains. They're snow covered right from my office. They're huge. They're like 14,000, 16,000 feet mountains. They're right on the doorstep. Like, an hour's drive. Colorado, Denver, you're in these. Wow. We have a place in the mountains at a place called Winter Park. It's a ski resort. It's an hour-and-a-half drive from me. I can go to a huge ski resort where they've had the Olympic Games, winter. It's spectacular skiing. My son is a big skier, so he has a place up there. Craig, he just turned 4. So he skis a lot. So he has a place up there. We have a place to go to the mountain. And then in summer, everything changes. The snow melts, the river's up, and the temperature goes to the opposite extreme. It's hotter than Cape Town, 80 degrees, 40 degrees centigrade, sometimes in June, July. So it goes really nice and still nice in the mountains there. There's a lot of hiking, rivers, stuff. So it's a very scenic place. I mean, I miss the sea. I have the mountains and the snow. I get my fill of the ocean. When my mother-in-law was alive, she died in she died like 4 years. My wife went to South Africa 3 times a year to see her mother, and I went once or twice a year, I would say for like 15 years. That's when I linked up with Mickey and Graham. So I spent maybe once or twice a year, in 2 to 4 weeks every year in South Africa until my mother-in-law died. Haven't been back. So then we would go in December, I'd go to the beach and I would go to Muizenberg and I would swim and even did surfing 50 years after I first went surfing with Larry Swartz in Muizenberg in my wet. Now I go to, like, we went to Greece in July, so we were in the ocean. So I kind of make a thing, I will swim in the ocean at least twice a year. And most years I managed to do that. I haven't been to Australia. I have a fantastic best friend in Australia, in Sydney, New South Wales University. His name's Zoltan Endre. He's also a kidney specialist. He always invites me to go to Australia. I know there's a SACS old boys club in Sydney. I've been married to her for 42 years, and suddenly I moved into a new family. And now my wife's family was just spectacular. Her parents were like the best people ever. It's like they became my step parents. They were encouraging and I couldn't believe it that there could be such spectacular, generous thing, right? So I moved, and when I met my wife, my father said to me, you know what, she's too good for you. She'll leave you very soon. Like, why the fuck would he say something? I still remember all that kind of stuff. And I think that has been part of, sometimes the way I've, often knowing the reason for why you have problems is good because it's something you can work on.
Charles, really.
The family that I never had, that kind of family, and that was really good. That's funny because it brings, you look at all these names, like books or whatever, and they've all done fantastically well, right? I mean, they've done well, but you don't know what really went on in their lives, and you don't want to know. I don't want to know, but no one's life is 100% smooth. No one had I don't believe anybody had the perfect life. Everyone's had some, setbacks in their life, right? Of all these people, but you wouldn't think so. Just looking at Larry Swartz, he's such a nice, stable, happy guy. He's moved to Australia and blah, blah, blah. His mother just died recently. But who knows exactly what happened to even Mike Canty. I'm sure Mike, I haven't kept contact with him. I sometimes see him when I go on Facebook. He's the only one that's there all the time. So, but he's obviously also had a complicated life. Everybody has. I mean, I don't think anyone's life has been perfect, but you look at all these names and you think, Hugo Hammond, geez, Hugo Hammond was the vice head boy and went to medical school and from a prominent family, and played rugby, first team, was a big guy. Who's what's happened in his life? I mean, I don't know. His life has had its ups and its downs, but that's just the other side of all these people, right? There's another side which, we don't need to know about, but that's the thing about, the other thing about an old boys reunion is like everyone just goes there and they're trying to make out that, they're happy and they've done well and they want everyone to know. They're not going to confide in that. So you don't really know the real people, right? You just know what people, you don't know, which is fine, but it's all, to me, it's just all superficial connection, right? I'm very friendly with Mickey and I know Mickey and Graham, I know their lives, I've met their lives. They're great. But so I don't know what the goal of an old boys reunion really is, for everyone to go there and say how well they've done and make out that their lives have been so perfect. So that's where, I have a soft spot for a lot of my friends. When I was growing up, my outlet was through my friends, because I didn't like being at home for obvious reasons. You may have thought bringing the paraphernalia out every night, putting out my father's every night was fun, and then we can make fun. It wasn't really that much, but so my outlet was with my friends. I spent as much time as possible with, especially like very early on when my mother died, I was like at Mickey DeFoss. And Mike Canty was very friendly. And Mike Canty's mother had a lot of empathy towards me, you know what I mean? Because I didn't have a mother. She would pick me up, take me places. Graham Boxall's mother was really nice to me. She'd even sew up holes in my clothes when I used to stay. Graham, I see my friends at school, and even when I went to medical school, there were different groups. But as of dealing with the trauma I had at home.
Yeah.
So I thank them for that. And I'll say that openly. My friends kept me safe when I was at school. People like Mickey and Graham and the fun I had at school. I mean, shit, terrible things. I mean, but I enjoyed. It was fantastic. It
Like
was
what?
a good outlet to all my frustrations, being unkind to the teachers and persecuting them and, putting up rat signs when Rat Paulson walked into the room. We once all put a piece of paper with the word rat on our desks. And when he walked in, and I think the guy started crying and he left. Geez, it was like, the bully, right? We were bullying other people to kind of deal with our own kind of ill feelings, like, messing around at school and doing stuff like that and fun of people like that. Our maths teacher, Oberholzer was his name, Fluffy. Now I remember that. And the one thing he said, I'll never forget, he says, every time I open my mouth, the same fool talks. And he couldn't understand. The class was hysterical. Do you remember that? I said that was more therapy for me than I could have got in a year. By it was like watching a comedy movie every time I open my mouth, the same fool. You can quote that at the thing. It's like, shit. So when we were young and going through traumas at home, instead of dealing with it like we should have, like our kids do now, we dealt with it by just messing around at school and being rebel. And, and then suddenly it hits us later on. The other thing I remember, the last day of school, a whole group of us, you may have been part of it. Mike Canty was part of it. We drove to Sunrise Beach and we burnt everything, all our books, which is kind of wrong in a way because there were people in South Africa that didn't even have textbooks. We were giving them for free. We made a bond and we burnt that. Mike Canty will remember that. I don't know if you were part. Wait, were you? I played rugby like we all had to play rugby. I was in the second team, believe it or not. Peter Kirsten was like in the first team when you came in. I was in the second team for one game. I played, Doug Brown was the coach of the second team. I played center for one in the second team. And then the next game, we played Abbott's College. And I was marking Stompie van der Merwe, who was like twice my size. And his name was Hermanus Stephanus Christianus Johannes van der Merwe. And he just ran through me every single time. And we lost and they dropped me down to I went from 90 degrees to minus 60. I went from the second team to the F team, thanks to Stompie van der Merwe. He was at SACS. We were always intrigued because he was the only real kind of Afrikaans name, although he was English, but he was Hermanus Stephanus Christianus Johannes van der Merwe or something. I have a lot of memories about people. Like I'm looking here, Robert Colley, he always sat at the back of the class, and I think they put him there and they forgot about him, which I think was really terrible. That's what used to happen.
Yeah.
And I remember once Peter Barnett, I actually saw him a few years ago when I was in Cape Town with me. Like the teachers were making fun of him, that he spelled cold, C-O-L-D, but he spelled it C-L-O-D, and he clearly had, what do you call it?
Dyslexia. Dyslexia.
Dyslexia, right? Because of his dyslexia, he was just ignored, right? He was like put at the back of the class and forgotten about and made fun of. And I remember that and think, geez, that's terrible. I mean, it's not nice. These kind of things happened to a lot of, I was lucky because I just was always in the front of the class, stuff like that. But a lot of people, you're right, just didn't have a good experience at all. And, were treated badly by the system and by the teachers and by us, other people. And I think some of them maybe got through it. You'll see it. From Denver to Cape Town to Schlep, believe me, I did it 20 times.
Sure.
10 years. It's like although there is a direct flight now from Newark, New York to Cape Town, United, which is fantastic. So I haven't done that flight yet, but I've still got to get to New York. I mean, that's a 4 hours. Colorado's state in the US to legalize marijuana. Which has become a problem because I can look out my window now and there's a marijuana store on every basically street corner. Now they've legalized what they call the mushroom, which is LSD.
Yes, I know.
They just voted being legalized. Getting legalized. So everyone smokes marijuana in Colorado, like everywhere. You can smell it in the air. In fact, in the public library, they have a problem because it's in the air there. So everyone deals with their stress here. I don't smoke marijuana. My daughter's been a marijuana addict like 3 times. We've had to get off marijuana, and the marijuana has led to methamphetamines and stuff as well. It's a huge drug problem here. I mean, it's unbelievable in Colorado. And of course, you know, the fentanyl, it's like there's 3 people a day dying just in Colorado from fentanyl overdoses. You can go to the railway station here. There are people living in the bathroom there, and they can't get them out. Just there doing drug situation here is horrific. It is just horrific. You come to the emergency room here. I mean, it's like people are dying. In fact, they've legalized nalorphine, which is the antidote for fentanyl. The people die from fentanyl opiate overdose. There's an antidote. You can basically pick that up anywhere and get it. And if you see a friend that's overdosing, you can give them the antidote and save their life. I'm surprised. What about Terry? Terry DeYoung is another person. Maybe we should kind of pay tribute to the people in our school that died. I mean, I remember a few that Terry was very close to Mickey, and Terry were extreme. There was a big knock for Mickey when Terry died. I was at Mickey's house one summer when I was going back to South Africa, and Terry DeYoung's family was there, his wife and his daughters, who Mickey's close with, and we all lit like candles for him. But he was such a nice guy. He had a unlucky time. That's Terry DeYoung. So that's another person. He was very friendly with Mickey. They lived in Constance. He was the district surgeon of Cape Town. He had a very important position, and he worked very closely with because he was like the police doctor. And he always like, I can never be caught for DUI, we call it here, drunken driving. I will never be caught. Once they came and they said, they ran and they're going to give him a ticket, and then was like, "Hi, Doc, how are you?" He had a connection with the police, right? So that he would never. So he used to drive all the time. I used to go with him, and he could be driving on the wrong side of the road as a kid, and I'm, fuck, this is terrible. He says, "I don't care. I will never be arrested for DUI because I'm in with all these," which he was. And my uncle, Elfie Edelstein, he was Brigadier Edelstein. He was head of the CID in Cape Town. He was the highest ranking Jewish police officer, I think, ever in South Africa. Wow. He was also a big drinker. And they were protected against anything because they were in. And my father was a bit weird because his specialties were drunken driving, they called it. DUI, they call it here, driving under the influence. Those were his specialties. So he would see all the rape victims in Cape Town. Ask me, maybe he was like he did forensic medicine. He was like a forensic person. So he had to seeing all those rape victims and things that made him a bit crazy as well. Yeah, forensic stuff is hard, and the police was really hard. So they were in book. Him and my uncle Alfie. There was this guy in Cape Town, his name was Cohen, who murdered his wife. Yes. In Constantia, made the news, called the Cohen case. They were the 2 that were involved in that book, in that thing. Cohen ended up in jail for 10 years and he was released, but he killed his wife with a statue
That's
in
right.
Constantia. He
Groot
was
schandaal.
involved with that case, and my uncle was investigating all that kind of stuff. But they took it to extreme. You know, once they had a flat tire, I remember, in their car, and they like woke me up in the middle of the night, both of them shaking me and accusing me of, you know, puncturing their. Still remember that, like, whoa, we have evidence that you punctured our tire. Like, what the fuck? You know, I did nothing, and it just turned out. I still remember that. The two of them, the police doctor. So yeah, so he was remembered for that, and he was known. The funny thing is, like most psychics, you know, most people saw him as a very good person. He was only crazy with his own family. People would say, how can he be that way? He wasn't like that. He was charming when it came to anybody. Charming, you know, with friends and people. Like, you know, when my wife met him for the first time, it's like, wow, he's such a charming guy, you know. And I had to explain to her, like, for years, the stuff that he did, and she couldn't believe it. Like, how can such a charming guy? He was like charming to everybody, right? Except like his own family, like, crazy. The bottom line of all this is that I think a lot of us, like, I think we have to be alike. We grew up in exactly the same, you know, generation. We grew up in the same schools. Our parents were all friendly. We had the same kind of likes. It's unbelievable, I think, how alike we are, even though we may seem that not. And I'm sure it's like that for a lot of all these people that are going. I mean, I had a good connection with Mickey and Gray. But the thing is, as I said, the reunion is just a superficial. I'm not interested in just seeing the superficial side of people. I like the relationship with people. I need to know, you know, where people are coming from, so that I can, when I speak, you know, all you're going to hear is, you know, oh, Christopher Hugo Hammond is a pediatric cardiologist, blah, blah, blah. And this one did that. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in going there and impressing them and wearing my best suit and, you know, getting my hair cut to show all my school, you know, mates, because we were all competitive, right? We were always I saw that everyone has been competitive, and it's like, so now I've got to like show them, look, I've done better than you. Although I wouldn't mind meeting Mark Witston again, because he always pipped me in Latin. Every single time I was always second in Latin. I just could never beat him in Latin. I tried every possible thing. He would get 100%, I would get like 99% for him. So there was competition. So I don't know. I mean, I have a huge urge to go. I don't think that people should take it personally. I'm busy. It's a long way. I'd like to send a nice, honest message on them. You know, you can take what you like, other than the confidential stuff we've talked about. You know, I didn't step foot in SACS for a long time because I have some guilt about, you know, the privilege that we had and we didn't appreciate it in time. You know, I think a lot of the teachers were psychopaths. I'm sorry to say, you know, if they're painting you, banging your head on the table. I must say, even when Di banged my head on the, and I told my father about this, and I expected my father to say, you deserve it. My father went berserk. I've never seen him. He went straight. It may have been Whiteford or somebody. He like made an appointment with the principal and like went in there and said, you do not. I was like, geez, my dad actually did that. He stuck up for me. I couldn't believe that, right? When I got my head banged on the table. And believe me, I wasn't the only one that was getting. I would say we definitely were abused. We were abused by the teachers. That I can say publicly, and no one can do it, right? Or people are too scared to say. We were abused by the teachers, but we had such fantastic friends, and that's what the best part of the school, being at SACS, was all the friends that I have, and that's the most important. Well, friends, I don't mean, I'm not friendly, but just people that I remember. Mm-hmm. But I thought I was an outlier again by my, you know, some of my SACS element. And, you know, when on Facebook, when they were putting stuff about John Ince died, and I put on Facebook, well, John Ince, you know, abused me. He used to hit me on my hand and my face with a ruler. That was my comment, when there was all these John, and I put that in. No one replied. Maybe it was inappropriate what I said. The guy just died, but that was my reaction. That's what I remember him as, and I don't think that was, so I thought I was an outlier when it came to, recognizing our privilege and that I think a lot of the teachers were emotional or even physical abuse. I wasn't emotionally abused, but I can promise you, Store and B4, Collie at the back of the class, I'm sure, and Peter Barnes were emotionally abused. They didn't know it at the time, but they were, just because of what they. And that's what's amazing, I think, about the United States, which I couldn't kind of fathom. Like, my kids came here and, like, at school, they could do what they like. They could do guitar and they could do, all this kind of stuff. And I suddenly realized, where's the math and the science? And it's like, the schools were there to bring out what the people were good at, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
If they saw someone was a good musician, they could do guitar their whole, and they could even, do it in their grade 12, college credit for guitar, and then go to college and study guitar. Things like, the system was so different. Here, I think even to the way South Africa is at the moment, I know it is because our friends whose kids have gone through the schooling system. It's like math, science, biology. You got to get all A's and that's it. Like, where's the guy, that's the guitar player that is more talented than any. In South Africa, that guy gets, put at the back of the class. In America, that guy is nurtured to become successful. And that's why we have, the US has fantastic, successful people, musicians in all kind of lives, because they encouraged at the schooling system encouraged. It's so different. Even university here, it's so different to what it is. It's like and I tell the students about that. The system in South Africa, the teaching system was, let's find out what people don't know. Here it's like they want to find out what you know. So we ask questions about stuff that know. And here it's like people get 100%, 90%, 80%, like 70% is a fail. At UCT, it was like 80% was like no one, but 50% was a fail. The system is different. I think personally it's a bad system. I think that SACS system was bad in the sense that if you could do math, science, biology well, you did well. The people that had other talents, those other talents completely were not.
Correct.
And I begrudged school for that because it was a good school. They could have. Tony, we were having an argument the other day. These people were like criticizing South Africa educational system. And I looked it up. The literacy rate in South Africa, that means, doing basic math and being able to write basic, is 95%. The literacy rate in the US is like 65%. There's an article in Forbes magazine about the literacy. There are kids that come out of school that can't read or write. Yeah, but they're wizards on computers, right? I don't need to read or write. I'm a computer whiz. I can program a computer in 1 second. Or, I'm like a guitar player, a musician. Is having 100% literacy important, or is encouraging, less literate type of futures more important? And I don't know, that's what I think happens here. The problem is there are a lot of people that are the best here, but there are a lot of people that can read or properly, can't, even write it. So I don't know. I think our teachers, I think there was some that stimulated creativity, like Doug Brown did, with writing poetry and stuff. But the others were just like, you've just got to learn this stuff. I just decided in standard 9, this is easy. I'm going to memorize everything. And I memorized everything. And I got 3 A's and 4 A's and 2 B's. I just missed the A aggregate. So I was like second in the class. I just memorized everything. I don't know if the teachers, they would just give you a test. And the test was having to memorize.
Sure.
Which teachers stimulated creativity for you? Doug Brown did for sure. He stimulated me writing poetry and stuff like that. Other than that, maybe Campbell stimulated my interest in like doing stuff related to the Roman Empire. But other than that, did
Oh,
any teacher
for me, it was Mo
stimulate
Orford.
creativity? I'm not talking about passing tests. Kelly was good. The film club, he was great. He had the film club. I went to his house and we made films. We made a film, I remember, the first, or something, Chris Barnard visited SACS or something.
Mm.
And we made this film. Yeah, Ralph Kelly. But that's like junior school.
No,
So I'm talking
Senior
about, was Ralph Kelly,
Yeah.
he wasn't my teacher.